Pastor Michael Nimick of the Christ Lutheran Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
Let us pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we just pray your blessing upon this gathering, this well-attended gathering of your people here from Hillsboro this evening. Pray your blessing upon our Mayor Johnson, all city council members, our city manager Megan, and also all those who serve our city, including our police officers and other deputies. Father, we pray your blessing upon our nation, all of our leaders, both at state and national level, that you would give them your wisdom. We pray for care for all those in our communities tonight during the cold weather coming in. We pray for safety for everyone that lives here in Hillsboro and throughout our state and country. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please face the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda here, statements from persons wishing to address the council. There are none. Moving along to the consent agenda. Deliberate and act on the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting on February 4, 2025. Act on the approval of bills. Deliberate and act on a resolution accepting the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission to approve the final plat of Cannon Estates in the city of Hillsboro on a certain tract of land being 19.496 acres, situated in the J. Cuppy Survey, abstract number 156, the G. Tarleton Survey, abstract number 1139, and the D. Spears Survey, abstract number 838, and being the same property as referenced in volume 2180, page 737, and volume 2202, page 633 of the official public records of Hill County, Texas, also known as the property to the south of the Stone Ridge Addition. Next item, deliberate and act on a resolution denying the increase in rates proposed by Atmos Energy Corporation in its Mid-Tex division filed on about December 16, 2024, and authorizing the city manager to execute all necessary documents. Deliberate and act on a resolution authorizing the Department of Public Safety to submit a grant proposal to the Office of the Governor for Rifle Assistance Body Armor. Council, does anyone have any items they want to pull out and discuss? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move we approve.
City Secretary.
Councilmember Fleming. Councilmember Zarate.
Aye.
Councilmember Richard.
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly.
Moving on to the regular agenda. Hear and deliberate on a presentation by Emily Zalfini regarding the Moving on. Hold a public hearing, second reading, and deliberate and act on an ordinance accepting the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission to amend the terms of the 2007 zoning ordinance, known as ordinance number O2007-01-01, last amended by O2007-0101, last amended by ordinance number O2024-11-23, whereby the purpose is to amend and establish requirements for guest houses and to amend the definition of guest house.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This being the second reading, I won't go into too much detail unless there's questions, but the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed requirements for guest houses and they recommended approval of amending the definition by just removing temporary in there. So the definition would read, as you see on the screen, a residential dwelling which may include living, sleeping, bathing, kitchen facilities, related secondary. The main dwelling structure is used solely for the habitation of guests and at no compensation. And having a maximum size of 1,000 square feet, so guest houses cannot be larger than 1,000 square feet of living space, or 50% of the living space of the primary residence. Total lot coverage not to exceed 50%. And then also addressing setbacks for guest houses and improve services to provide access to the guest house. You see on the last bullet there. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to entertain those. Planning and Zoning Commission does recommend approval of these requirements.
Thank you, Richard. Any questions for Mr. Reinhardt? Hearing no questions from council. This is a public hearing. We'll open up the public hearing to anyone in the audience that would like to address this particular agenda item. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Zarate.
Aye.
Councilmember Richmond.
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly.
Next item on the agenda here, deliberate on the city manager's report.
Thank you, and just to let everybody know, we've had some technical difficulties, so we'll just try to be as loud as we can. I'm going to be brief tonight because we actually do have one person wishing to address the council, and that is Chris McGowan. He is the consultant helping us to prepare for the comprehensive plan, and he's going to discuss placemaking, which is fitting for tonight because placemaking both boosts economic development and enhances quality of life. So I do want to just quickly skate through some updates on building better infrastructure and delivering essential services. And you thought I was going to not say it, but for anybody who's not heard me say this before, we have 8 strategic goals. At the first council meeting of every month, I go through the first 4. At the second council meeting of every month, I go through the second 4. So these are goals 5 through 8. So goal 5, build better infrastructure. The biggest project that we have ongoing is our street and infrastructure project. We met with the engineers and contractors on Friday, and we are roughly 80% through with that project. It's a $6 million project. We did a change order of about $120,000 to add some length on Old Brandon Road and to go back to full depth reclamation on Church Street. But we are on target to finish that project on time. I know this is kind of a lot, but this is to show you the progress that we're making relative to each of the different areas of infrastructure where we really need improvement. So the streets were kind of the first priority, and we are the furthest along. But the process is essentially the same for all of those different types of infrastructure. So first we do a deep assessment, and then we figure out what piece to contract and what piece to perform in-house. And then each of those pieces needs to be funded. So as you see with streets, we have gotten to the point where we are implementing the contracted portion of the program, and it's time to start planning the next phase of contracted work. So that should be taking place in the spring. As with the previous project, we will get public input to help us select the priority streets, and then we'll move forward with those. With water, we've done the assessment, and we've got a first draft of splitting up what work we're going to contract for and what work we're going to perform in-house. But as you guys probably already know, we have a $30 million ask into the Texas Water Development Board, and their response to that request is what's going to determine what gets done and at what speed. So with $30 million, all of our other decisions are waiting on hearing from them. Followers of this conversation will know that our being eligible to receive those funds, and there are loans, but a big percentage of that will be forgivable. In order for us to be eligible to receive those funds, the county has to adopt the state's model subdivision regulations. The city's already done it. The county has to follow suit, It is on their agenda for the next meeting in February, and so it looks like that will happen, but obviously, you know, it's not done until it's done. With wastewater system, we have not got a system assessment, but we are negotiating a scope of work with the engineering firm that will conduct that assessment. And then drainage is kind of the next thing after that. And we have a drainage survey in the state water plan, which will enable us to receive funding to help us tackle that probably sometime in 2026. Quickly on delivering essential services, the main, you know, this is just us, you know, doing as well as we can on the things that are on our list all the time. The main update here is that we've had a meeting with Republic and Frontier, our current and future solid waste collections providers. They're coordinating the handoff of that service, which will take place by April 1st. So the week of March 24th, residents will receive the new carts from Frontier Services, and then beginning April 1st, Frontier will begin servicing those carts. That is all from my report. Oh, and remember, this weekend is Fire and Ice. That is Main Street's fantastic downtown event. It sells out every year. There's still a couple of tickets. So if you're a straggler, don't wait any longer. And now,
Excuse me. Council, Mayor, appreciate y'all's time. Megan, that was a really great report. I've spent the last several weeks kind of getting to know Hillsborough, and you know, one of the things that's come up as I've met with people over time has been streets and water and fixing the infrastructure. So it's wonderful to see updates and a plan going forward to meet some of those critical needs. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about coming together in preparation for your comprehensive plan. Y'all heard a presentation and selected a consulting team last council meeting to take you through that. What I've been doing for the past several weeks is, as I mentioned, getting to know the community, understanding, you know, what your needs and wants are, and trying to sort of distill that into a series of, you know, questions for you to contemplate as you go through this comprehensive planning process. I don't have answers, I only have information and questions for you to think about as you go through this process. I want to start off with talking about placemaking. Today in economic development, placemaking is a very important concept. You know, back in the day, economic development was all about having land or buildings or things like that. Today, the currency is talent, and your ability to attract a talented workforce is what separates you as you're competing with other communities for jobs and other resources. I believe that vibrant Hillsborough is the key to your future success as a city. And some of the core values that go along with placemaking are, obviously, as I said earlier, talent, you know, developing and attracting people with the skills to meet the needs of your workforce and grow your workforce is a very important concept. Innovation, fostering environments that can attract and create an innovative workforce requires these investments in placemaking. We have to have places that people want to be in order to be successful as cities. Quality of places, understanding the assets of your community, you know, through the eyes of those people that you are looking to attract into this community and cultivate within this community is an important concept, as is resiliency. One of the things that you're going to hear a lot through the comprehensive planning process is, you know, we need to upgrade this, we need to fix that. It all comes with a price tag and understanding how to use your consultants' financial models to make good decisions, to build things that last. At the same time, meeting your budget demands is going to be some of the major questions that you'll have throughout this process. Infrastructure is key. I believe that great cities are defined by great places. As I said, to have a strong economic development program, you have to attract and promote and cultivate a talent base by creating outstanding places for people to live, work, and play. I believe it's sensible to resilient economic development. That is, not overextending yourself, not going into serious debt, but working to build what you can and utilizing the economic development system to create new revenue streams for your city to provide those services and meet those needs. A big part of that is creating a quality downtown environment. I know y'all will be talking about that as you go through your comprehensive planning process. But I also want to talk a little bit about help you guys understand the changing market conditions. The last time you did a comprehensive plan was in 2008. And since 2008, the world has changed probably 3 times over. I think Facebook went public in 2007, off of college campuses. That's now a major media stream in how a lot of us consume our information. The iPhone was just starting to get into people's pockets in 2008. We had a major financial crisis right after y'all finished your comprehensive plan in 2008 that crashed the housing market and changed the way that people buy and sell homes and the way that homes get built. We've had a pandemic that's changed a lot of things as well. So a whole lot of things have changed. I just want to go over a few of them with you, if you will allow me. The demographers out there today believe that the state of Texas is going to double in population by 2050. If we extrapolate that to the city of Hillsborough, which I don't think is an unreasonable ask, given your geographic location on the I-35 corridor, the fastest growing corridor in the country, and being right in the middle of it, I don't think it's too far to say that if those population projections hit, you'll see the population of Hillsborough double in the next 25 years. That's a lot of people. What are we going to do with them? Where are we going to go with them? Those people are going to look different than the growth that you've seen in the past. This is a chart that I like to put in almost every one of my presentations. In 2012, the number of people turning 65 every year doubled, more than doubled. Baby boomers entering retirement age, and that's changing the shape of our cities and our communities because of all sorts of things. The types of housing that we need, the jobs that are available and that we need to think about, and all those kinds of things. So understanding that the demographics have changed dramatically since 2008 is something that I want y'all to keep in the back of your minds as you go through this process. The housing market has diversified in a big way. Home buyers are getting older. Ourselves from the elements and focus primarily on trade and safety. Then the Industrial Revolution came around in the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. Said our living conditions as people is getting a little bit better. Maybe we need to think about some of these next level types of needs about creating beautiful places and parks and boulevards and public spaces. And from that you saw major investments in infrastructure in cities and the country really, which led into sort of the post-war era when we built our interstate system, when we saw suburbanization kind of as the realization of the American dream, if you will. We subsidized people moving into single-family homes and home ownership, and we really kind of locked down the idea of sort of, the American dream and car culture, if you will. It was a big deal back then, American graffiti and all that good stuff. And then we go into sort of what's called the new urbanist era, which is where we focused on a return to traditional town planning. First, we thought it was a good idea to push everybody out. Then we thought it was a good idea to bring everybody back together. Planning is cyclical just like everything else. And then after that, we started utilizing technology to think about our system. Things like geographic information systems were made available to allow us to map our water and sewer systems and allow anyone in our community to access that information. So leveraging technology to improve infrastructure and enhance those public services was a big thing. Today, in planning, we're kind of doing all of that. we're at sort of approaching the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs as it relates to cities, if you'll allow me. And thinking about current and future priorities, I think about upgrading infrastructure. 80 years ago, our parents went into great debt in this community, in this country, really, to invest in infrastructure that largely, as a country, we've ignored, and we're reaping the I'll say rewards of that now by seeing water leaks all over the place, bridges crumbling, streets with potholes and things like that. I saw an article today that talked about water availability in Texas that said there was a survey of rural water systems and said 52% of them expect to run out of water in the next 20 years. And by 2050, the state of Texas is going to have a deficit of almost 6 million acre-feet of water. Put that in perspective, I'm guessing here, but it's a pretty educated guess, the city of Hillsborough uses less than 3,000 acre-feet of water probably at the moment. So if we're short 6 million, that's definitely going to impact your community. So thinking about those infrastructure issues that we've sort of neglected for several decades, revitalizing neglected neighborhoods, and including our downtown areas is an important thing. Economic stewardship, being smart with the dollars that we have and leveraging that to create new revenue to provide better services to our community is important. And sensible growth strategies, understanding who's coming, where they're going to go, and what we're going to do with them. All of this adds up to me to being a functional, beautiful, invitational, and resilient community. And those are 4 things that I've heard from people as I've been out talking to people in Hillsborough about what they want to see. We hear beautiful a lot, functional, especially as they're dealing with their downtown businesses being shut down because the water needs to be turned off for a little while for repairs. Invitational is something I've heard from almost everyone I've talked to, and that is, making sure that that all the people in our community are engaged in the process of government, and specifically as it relates to this comprehensive planning process, specifically invited to be a part of it and feel like they can be a part of it. And of course, resilient, again, making smart investments and building things that last. Towns just aren't buildings and streets and sidewalks and parks. They're also people and cultural norms and values and customs and ideas and relationships. And I hear every city I've ever worked in, you ask people, what do you like about your community? And the first thing they always say is it's the people. And I believe that in all of those cities, including Hillsborough. And that's one of the reasons we want to talk about invitational and making sure that everybody has an opportunity to engage in the process. If we enable the creation of great spaces, community connections, foster human experiences for everything, build things at a scale that humans can relate to, businesses, customers, residents, and more importantly, that economic resilience will follow. So if we think about placemaking and make progress to implement those ideals, your community, I believe, will be stronger in the long run. Some questions that I have for you to think about, and I don't need answers right now, but as you go through the comprehensive planning process, I want you to be mindful of these things. The first question I've thought about is de-urbanization. Coming out of the pandemic, we're seeing a lot more people work from home, and that is availing people all over the country to choose where they want to live. How is that going to impact Hillsborough? You're seeing a pretty good amount of future housing coming, and some of that might be related to some of these. Related to that, the housing crisis. We had one. Everybody got comfortable coming out of that with low to no interest rates. Many people who are buying houses today don't remember 18% in the 80s, and so 7% is crazy. My wife's a real estate broker, she can attest to that. And, you know, every single city in the country is short on housing. So, you know, working to meet those needs is something to think about. How can your comprehensive planning process provide an opportunity to create human connections and social cohesion? What can you do through this process and the way that you build your city to pull people together as a community? That's a question I want you to think about. You know, related to that, how can we reclaim that human experience? I say human scale and human experience a lot, and what I mean is people meeting face to face and talking about things and getting together and being a community. I believe we have an innate human need to connect with others. And we used to live in cities that facilitated that. And then with sort of the rise of social media, we created a sort of an artificial town square, I guess, if you will. But I believe that, that people aren't satisfied with that, and they want to come back and connect with each other. What are some quick, high-impact experiments that we can do as a community to see some of these positive changes? I've had a conversation with a friend of mine for going on 20 years as a planner, that you know, our work as planners is very slow and deliberate, and are there things that we can do quickly to sort of test those things in an entrepreneurial way? You're seeing interventions in downtowns around the country pop up, celebrations. There's a program, national program called Parking Day, where people turn parking spaces into parks, just to see, you know, see what it's like, things like that. And one question that popped out of me as it relates to Hillsborough is the Deaf American Mall. You've got a great piece of property out on the interstate. I know you're working hard to make great things happen there. You know, nothing more to say on that other than to think about it. Live-work connection. I have not done the research on this, but I have a feeling that Hillsborough, during the day, imports a large number of people that work in its industrial park, blue-collar jobs. And I also have a feeling that a lot of people that live in Hillsborough go outside of town and work in more white-collar jobs. I don't know if that's true, but I think it's something to think about. You know, what type of jobs are we attracting, and is there an opportunity for us to utilize our talent in this community to focus on creating higher-paying jobs? New ideas in housing. We just had a second reading of guest houses. New ideas in housing, ADUs, infill, creating density where it's sensible and addressing issues of affordability, such as missing middle housing, which is a big concept of planning today. It goes sort of like this. We built houses for people that can afford them. We built houses for people on the very low end and subsidized that, and we've forgotten the people in the middle. What are we doing to address that? How are we going to accommodate an aging population in Hillsborough? I showed you the number of people turning 65 annually and how it's doubled in the last 15 years or so. That's going to impact the decisions that you make as a community. Again, community engagement, I think I've talked a lot about that. Equality. What are we building and how are we building it? And are we ensuring that what we're doing is quality? And what does that mean to you as you go through this process? There we go, thank you. Takeaways. I believe Hillsborough is in a great position for the future. You got new housing coming. You've got a surprisingly strong industrial sector that I knew nothing about before I got here. You've got great leadership, staff leadership, that's working on, as you saw tonight with our city manager's report, addressing your infrastructure issues. I think the trends are in your favor if you think growth is important to the city, to resiliency. If not, growth is coming. So your job is to make it work for you. I think if you frame the change that's coming in terms that will benefit this community and to prepare Hillsborough to achieve its goals, it will be successful. And y'all done a tremendous job, at least as far as long as I've been here, engaging people and having these conversations. And clearly your city manager is a stalwart when it comes to transparency and inclusivity. I've never seen anyone like her in the way she works to engage people, so that's definitely a plus. And then foster conversation on city-building issues, turning those into strategies and priorities through your comprehensive plan to enable, again, keywords for me are functional, beautiful, invitational, and resilient. I know can you click me again? I don't think I can take questions from you guys, but
We'll wait and do questions from the audience.
We'll do
once
questions from the
council
audience.
gets into executive.
if you do have any questions for me, my email is here. I appreciate your time and thank you for all that you do.
Thanks, Mr. Next item on the agenda, hold a closed session under provisions of section 557.071 and 551.087 of the Government Code, consultation with attorney and economic development. 6:34, show the council on the closed session.
Okay.
Questions from you guys, if you have any. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned the death of American Mall.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts of it equaling the death of American Downtown?
That's a really interesting question. I think downtowns are something that people aspire to because of the history and things of that nature. If you think about any great city you've been to, a lot of times what you think about is the downtown area. I think that downtowns are everybody's neighborhood, and so I think that they're more personal. They create an opportunity for people to connect. There's a wonderful book written in the '60s by an author named Jane Jacobs called The Death and Life of American Cities, and she talks about this sort of human connection and ability to become a community through downtowns and urban areas. It's a really interesting, great read if you're interested in it.
I just asked the question because in this town you see how
Yeah.
both occurring. So
Yeah.
How is that parallel? What can we do?
Yeah, I think they're two totally separate issues. I think you've got a wonderful little downtown area that seems to be doing pretty good. Could be a little better in terms of the number of businesses and people that are utilizing them. But I think your markets for what you're working to attract out on the interstate versus what happens in downtown are two completely different things. For me, downtown is more local serving and reasons for people to come to the downtown, local people to come to the downtown area. And the interstate is 100,000 cars a day, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Are you planning on anything about aviation or expansion of the airport or anything like that?
I am not addressing or haven't talked about much of that. I've heard about plans to expand
Are you part of the city planning thing though?
no, I'm a consultant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I understand that there has been a lot of conversations about expanding the airport. I don't know where those are, and that is not something that I'm in charge of looking at.
Right, so as a consultant, what would you think about that?
Who does it serve, would be my first question.
Who would it serve?
I'm asking right now, who does it hurt?
You're the consultant.
I don't know. Like I said, I haven't looked at it. You know, if you're looking to
I mean, do most cities have airports that they expand from time to time, or anything like that?
large cities for the most part, small cities mostly used for agriculture. Yeah. Any other questions? We're here. Let's talk about it. Seriously? You all came out.
So, can you tell us, like, I'm not really understanding exactly your role and what the
Yes.
council is going to do with what you're, like, observing and giving us. So tell
Right.
us how that works together.
Yeah, so
What is your purpose?
but my wife asks me that all the time. The city engaged me to, my background is in urban planning, economic development, and real estate development. I've been working in those areas in cities for about 35 years. The city of Hillsborough engaged me to start to have conversations with this community in preparation for the comprehensive planning process. And so that's kind of what I've done and what I sort of reported on today. I also think that there's a tremendous opportunity for someone who, like me, who speaks the language of planners and city people, and I speak multiple languages as it relates to real estate development, whatever. Your consulting team for the comp planning process is a large out-of-town consulting firm, not that large, they're great. They will come to this community 2 or 3 times, probably, maybe 4 throughout the process. And they won't have as deep of a touch into the community as I'm able to have. I live just down the road in Waco. I've been coming to Hillsborough Fridays, I call it, every Friday for the past, like 10 weeks, I think. Really getting to understand this community. And so, I will work with the consulting team to provide that depth at a professional and technical level, if you will, not keeping the community from being engaged in the process, but to provide the context from what I've seen and heard in the process, if that makes sense. Hopefully to help, so that the purpose, I guess, would be to provide a more depth of context to the consulting team as they're going through their work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Great. Any other questions? Yes.
Is there anything that you feel like from your Fridays in Hillsborough that people have a aversion to, but you know it would be kind of good for them to open their mind to? Is that about lot size or
No.
what? Have you seen something that people are against that you know would be good for us?
Well, I think, no, nothing specifically. But I do think I've seen a healthy amount of skepticism about government in general, about city work. And I think that, that's normal and healthy. And that's why we work to be invitational, so that everybody has a voice in the matter. I've been very, very surprised with Hillsborough and the way that people are engaged, and not just how much they love their community, but also sort of thinking in a long-term way about securing a strong future for the community. But I haven't heard anything specific. And again, my job isn't to sort of issue those sort of value statements. My job is to listen and take it in and reflect, because the only way a plan can be successful is if people see themselves in it and it represents them, not me.
Is there any group of businesses or anything like this that would enhance a city's or industries that would enhance the city's well-being?
Any group of businesses, well,
Industries,
yeah, I mean, given,
certain types of industries?
sure, this is just my opinion. I think that where Hillsborough is geographically situated, sets it up well for logistics businesses. I also think there's an opportunity to pursue more higher paying jobs in this community, more kind of professional jobs. As I mentioned, people are working remotely and making decisions on where they want to be rather than where their job is. So creating a place where people want to be can help with that. But you're also seeing all up and down the I-35 corridor, not necessarily corporate headquarters, but back office types of ventures, accounting and things of that nature. That could be a good fit for a place like Hillsborough as people are commuting.
What about safety training group or companies, like a firearms training facility, or what do they call those, a gun range?
Yeah.
Or something like that? Does Hillsborough have one of those?
I have no idea. No idea.
Do you happen to know the median household income
I think it's
for Hillsborough?
in the mid-30s.
So you were talking about white collar jobs and blue collar jobs.
Uh-huh.
You also emphasize that Hillsborough is industrial park is pretty big,
Yeah,
right?
and it's full too.
How many, you would say, students from Hillsborough? What's the average acceptance for college?
No clue.
No clue.
No.
So it's been established that Hillsborough is a blue collar town, low income.
Okay.
So is y'all's plan taking that into consideration?
I think it should. It's not my plan, it's y'all's plan.
The plan that you're advising them on.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking the question about, so, you've got, how many jobs in the industrial park? Probably close to 1,000, if I were to guess. My question is, how many of the people that work in that industrial park live in Hillsborough?
There's a lot that do, and there's a lot that don't.
Right. I'm guessing you net import people to work at those jobs every day, and they go out to, areas around here. But a lot of people that live in Hillsborough do work there as well. And then the counter of that was, how many people here in Hillsborough that work in professional jobs go somewhere else to work, and how can we keep those people here as well? So yes, on both sides, right? How are we addressing issues related to lower income and accommodating housing specifically for blue collar jobs? That's that missing middle and affordable housing stuff. And then how are we working to attract and retain a more talent-based workforce and jobs like that, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, you're talking about bringing in more professional jobs with higher paying wages, but, those would be considered office jobs. White collar jobs, there's not a whole lot of office jobs in this town.
Right.
Right. The biggest industry is the industrial complex.
For sure.
You got Gates, you got IKO, you got Frontier, you got Weisenbaker, you got all these big companies.
Yeah.
But most of them, you don't have to have a high school diploma to go to.
Right. Right.
People here in this town cycle through each factory.
Yeah.
If they don't have a high school diploma. So, and unfortunately, we are a low income county. There is a lot of growth going on here.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think where a lot of our focus needs to happen is on the educational system here in town. That's a whole different subject, but
Sure. Yeah.
educating.
Yeah. Great. I love it. Yes, sir.
Kind of probably going to be a twofold, a little bit question. For the last 30 years, internet and access to the internet has been a big thing.
Yes.
Do you see that still as a big, huge challenge for people in the future?
Access.
And also, obviously, I think sometimes as a person that works in the business here, our internet access hasn't even caught up to what would be acceptable, say, in the 90s.
Yeah.
Any thoughts and experiences with that?
I mean, internet is essential to everyone's life today, and having robust access is the key to pretty much every aspect of life, right? I will tell you this, I have worked in cities all over the state of Texas, and I spent a lot of time 20 years ago down in the Gulf Coast area, in the Houston area, and I would work with sort of, we'll say, second tier suburbs of Houston that hadn't seen growth happen yet, like say Wharton, Texas. And I would go to Wharton, this was back in the probably late 90s, early 2000s. I would go to Wharton, right when cable internet came to be a thing. We'd go to Wharton, and the city of Wharton would say to me, we gotta get, and when are we gonna get cable internet? It's our most important issue. And what I would say back to them is, no, your most important issue is that there's gonna be thousands of people coming here in the next 30 years, and you need to understand and think about how to accommodate them and make sure that you grow in a way that doesn't, that doesn't, you know, lose your identity or keep you from being the type of place that you want to be. And I would say the same probably holds true for Hillsborough. Is, like it or not, Hillsborough is going to grow a lot in the next 20 years. And with that, internet issues will be solved. What won't be solved is water issues, housing issues, and things of that nature. So that's why going through this comprehensive planning process to think about how we manage and deal with all that is really so important.
I guess I understand all of that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
How will internet be solved? It hasn't been solved yet.
I mean, you're seeing a lot of movement on satellite internet right now. Go ahead. I don't know. I'm not a technology guy.
We have Rise Fiber Internet.
It didn't come out to my house.
It's going to, the first phase, and perhaps we need to put this in the paper. The first phase is going to be near the country club, and there's like 8 or 9 phases. We're going to have internet speeds topping the top 30% of the country, most of that percentage being major metropolitan areas. So the investment is significant. The first phase is being started this month, late this month. I can work to get a phase map to everyone.
Yeah, it would be great. I know I haven't heard.
Just to speak to the importance of that and being on the front end of it, it's a bigger city, but the city of Chattanooga, Tennessee was the first city in the country to build what they call gigabit internet. And they did it as a municipal utility. Like the city operated the ISP that provided, at the time, the fastest internet in the world. And they did it to create efficiencies within their water system, so that you could plug into smart water meters and read them without having to go anywhere and all that kind of stuff. But what happened was, they had the fastest internet in the world, and they started seeing a lot of entrepreneurs and venture capital people move into their community. Because they want tech people mostly that wanted to access that internet, you know, so it can make a difference. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
If you're saying that Hillsborough wants professional people and most professional people are working remotely, you have to have that.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's essential. I totally agree.
So the question is, I think we all recognize what Hillsborough needs. It's infrastructure and then the lack of money to build, right?
Yeah.
And so from your experience through other cities who've been in similar situations, what have they invested in that has brought in capital to allow them to do these kinds of things? Because it's obvious at this point that our tax base isn't gonna pay for this overnight.
Right.
So is there something that we can do as a city to invest in that can expedite that in a way that we can draw capital?
I mean, that's a big risk, to invest in something that hasn't come yet. I personally am more inclined to see a sort of pay and build as you grow. I believe that the fuel that runs a city is economic development, jobs, people, and jobs and people basically. That creates the revenue streams, right? Most cities, most small towns, I should say, have gotten into a situation where they're behind the curve on managing their just basic infrastructure. And to dig yourself out of it without growing is an impossible situation.
Right, it's kind of a catch-22. It's like you gotta pull people in, but they're not gonna pay the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, the answer is growth. And the good news is growth is coming. My challenge to the city is figure out a way to make that growth look like what you want it to be, that maintains the character of this community, that doesn't, I have a lot of references to South Texas and Gulf Coast. Has anybody ever been to Pearland, Texas? All right. Pearland to me was a city that got overrun with growth, and they weren't ready for it. Traffic problems, expensive housing, infrastructure couldn't keep up. Don't be Pearland, is what I would say. Understand what you want in this community and express that to your leadership through this comprehensive planning process, so that in 20 years, when the population of Hillsborough has doubled, it still feels like Hillsborough. Does that make sense? Sure. Yeah. But, I'm sorry. But also understand that things are changing. It may not feel like Hillsborough to build a house on a 50-foot lot, because there aren't any 50-foot lots. But that's what builders build these days. You know what I mean? And that's where the give and take and conversation really happens. Does that answer your question?
Look, kind of, yeah. I guess my main question is, because of your experience with other towns, what have you seen them invest in that might build up some revenue for them because they had a lack of tax money, whatever, to pay?
I mean, what I would suggest for the city of Hillsborough is maximize the interstate frontage. You're working towards that with the mall property. Create an interesting, unique downtown vibe that is only, not only in terms of exclusive, but is loudly and proudly Hillsborough. Building the place that people want to be, so that you can attract the type of talent that we're talking about. And then working to accommodate, the growth of housing in the most efficient way that you possibly can in terms of your infrastructure investments. Those are the three things that, you don't have to throw a whole lot of money into probably.
Yeah, and Hillsborough is uniquely positioned for that, because of what you got 35 right there. You've got the outlet malls that's being developed.
Right.
I mean, to me, it's a diamond in the rough. We just need to
I agree.
dig it out and roll it.
Yes, sir.
So, 50,000 foot question or 5,000 foot question?
Oh.
Okay. At the 5,000 foot level, one of the recurring themes I'm hearing you say is, I don't have the information. I don't know how many of these people live here and work here. I don't know how many people are going. So what is your suggestion for how to solve that information gap?
I mean, the data's out there. So we'll
or not.
I mean, if you're not a part of the member of the Texas Downtown Association, you should be. Are you? Yeah. Yes. That's a great organization. Other than that, I think you're doing all right. You know, I just think it hasn't gotten there yet. Growth. You know, I talked to a group of people not too long ago, and they said, we've been hearing this, or many people that I've talked to, said, we've been hearing this for 30 years. Hillsboro's gonna grow, it's gonna grow, and it hasn't happened. Things are different. Things are different today. It's gonna happen. It definitely is gonna happen. Yes, sir.
What are some strategies to keep that growth from overwhelming the community? See that so much.
Yeah, make sure you can pay for it. I know that your city is looking at impact fees. Is that right, Allison? Yes. Which can offset the cost to extend infrastructure places, and that can also, you know, like I said, help you pay for it. The one thing that you do have that I think can likely keep that from happening is you've got a lot of land. Hillsboro has a lot of land. In the city and in the ETJ. So you've got a lot of room for growth. So I don't know about necessarily being overwhelmed, other than sort of intangible things, you know, like the vibe, I guess, if you will.
It seems like so many cities have this perception that, you know, all growth is good. We want to attract, we want to grow, we want to grow.
Don't be afraid to say no.
Well, yeah, I think at some point city has to ask itself, you know, is that what we want? I mean, you
Right.
all live in Burleson.
Right. Yeah, you don't want
Hillsboro to come on.
you don't want I don't know, pork fat refining facility necessarily close to your downtown area or something. You know, say no when the opportunity presents itself to get what you want. Yeah, absolutely. And there are mechanisms for you, the citizens of Hillsboro, to engage in that process through public hearings, and planning and zoning, and city council. So, you know, stand up for what you believe in, I guess. Sir.
In your work, you've been coming down to Hillsboro over these few weeks. In what ways have you, or the other groups of the city, engaged like the different age groups or other black and brown communities? Different demographics in terms of giving a voice to mechanisms on what the needs and interests are?
I have tried to talk to as many different demographic types, I guess, as I can. I personally it seems to me that there's doesn't seem to be a whole lot of participation from the minority communities in Hillsboro, and I don't know if that is. I don't think it's by design. So I know Megan, and I know she's like crazy transparent about trying to get people here. I think that there is a lot of work to do.
What are the demographics of Hillsboro?
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know either.
Yeah. I don't know, but I get a sense that there are voices that aren't being heard in this community, and this is my personal belief is that, again, being invitational, everybody needs to feel like they're invited to the party, you know, and whatever you can do as a city to make that better is going to make you a stronger city, right? So I don't think I've really answered your question. I mean, I've talked to people, but there's not enough of that happening in this community, if I may be perfectly frank.
No, I was just curious.
Yeah.
I have a second question, not related
Yeah.
But, I know infrastructure, improvements are big, water in particular because of lack of water in the future, right?
Yeah.
But outside of that, particular infrastructure, did you consult or provide any feedback on, like backup power or, energy resiliency for a community of this size? I mean, it's not maybe as big of a deal in terms of other things, but, maybe there's solar and things like that, maybe battery backup.
Yeah.
Different programs that are out there that maybe won't be around as long in the next few years, but, just as far as, providing, another level of resiliency to a community that might be cut off from.
Yeah.
The rate of something were to happen.
Yeah. So let's take that at a 5,000 foot and a 50,000 foot level. Keeping in theme. At a 5,000 foot level, I know, and I would imagine, there was a bunch of money coming out after COVID and after the great freeze of whatever it was a few years ago, for cities to improve their backup resiliency at their police and fire stations and things of that nature. And I'm certain that the city of Hillsborough took advantage of that, of those monies that were available. Every city in the state did. In fact, they were required to in some instances. At the 50,000 foot level, I don't know how much of a city issue it is or how much control a city has over, something like the ERCOT grid, and what goes into it and how it's managed, right? But I will tell you, the people that make those decisions probably aren't thinking about Hillsborough when they're making them. They're probably thinking about, where their money's coming from, if I'm being perfectly honest. Bigger cities. Yes, ma'am.
The old buildings and old homes that make up Hillsborough, which in my opinion, I've only been here 4 years, really are a great jewel to this city.
Sure.
What suggestions do you have for bringing in people that want to embrace that history and have the money to restore? Because a lot of these buildings and homes are just falling into disrepair and they're being demolished because they're just so bad.
Yeah.
So how do we get people in here to invest before it gets to that point?
And I think that goes right to the core of this idea of placemaking, creating a community that people want to be will attract all types of people. I don't think there are necessarily any specific strategies that you can go out and say, unless you're going to buy it and give it away, which some cities have done, to people to move into some buildings or houses. You've got, just here in the downtown, you've got a great home to the downtown area. And a lot of those businesses, a lot of those buildings are occupied. Hopefully they're thriving. But a lot of them still have room to grow and be redone. And I think that, as you're working through the process of growing as a community, creating an identity in the downtown area is so important. And I talked about, kind of iterative experiments that you can do to generate excitement in those things. Downtown is where you do that. You hold block parties or secret pop-ups or whatever to get people to come out to the downtown area. And I don't mean on an annual festival. I mean weekly, give people a reason to be downtown, and then they'll see the opportunity there, and somebody will surprise you. Open up something amazing. As far as the historic homes are concerned, it becomes an ever increasing expensive endeavor to fix up a historic home. And a lot of times it's got to be a labor of love because you're not making money on that deal. There are, historic districts and things of that nature that you can institute. Being a member of the Texas Main Street can help with some of that. They, you know, it's historic preservation-based economic development that can provide architectural renderings and conceptual drawings for some of these historic buildings that could get people excited about it.
You being from Waco, is there something that Waco has done that you really think would work here? Because they've turned around their downtown.
Yeah. So I moved to Waco and became the guy whose job it was to revitalize downtown Waco. And I got there in 2007 and worked for the Chamber of Commerce. And they said, we want you to start conversations about why downtown is important. And I thought the first thing I should do is go out and meet the people that own downtown businesses. So I went the first week or so, got there. Went up 10 o'clock in the morning, went out Austin Avenue, I'm gonna meet all these business owners. There were three. There were three. And listened to them, but also started having conversations with the larger community. We opened it up to everyone to be a part of a conversation about the importance of downtown, because prior to that, it was, you know, all the same decision makers down in the basement at the country club having these conversations in some sort of committee. And I created a thing called the Thousand Friends of Waco. That was, we're gonna just start having all these conversations out in public and everyone's excited, just to generate interest and excitement. And then we started doing some of these just random, I mean, this is just me and friends, doing these random experiments, you know, throwing a mural on a wall, or we find a buddy who had a vacant building on Austin and do a pop-up potluck dinner, and we started posting about it, and we posted about it under the name of, we called it Waco Town, and that kind of took off as sort of a hashtag that built this sense of community. So just do something. I mean, that's what I would say. Just do something. Don't wait for someone else. You know, if you want to see something happen, do it. And it doesn't have to be expensive. Just make it fun, and invitational, and give people a reason to come down, check it out. Anybody else?
I just want to say that I'm impressed with the turnout here.
Yeah.
And that it could be bigger if we just kind of tell our friends and family once these things happen, you know.
Absolutely.
Before I came out, I just threw a text to like 6 or so people, said, hey, anybody coming out?
Yeah.
This, that, or the other. Because a lot of people will forget, you know, like, oh, I want to go, but then they get bogged down with life and forget, and it's like, oh, it's an hour away. I can change things around and do everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it just takes really one or two people to ask the right question to get the, you know, like you're saying, just to get the wheels turning, just, you know, squirt a little WD-40 in that gear and just get it moving a little bit.
That's the answer to your question. Is I've been involved in a whole lot of things that have happened in downtown Waco, and the way that they happen is because me or somebody else just throws a crazy idea out there, and then somebody else, and we keep talking about it until somebody else starts talking about it, and then 5 years later, you know, it's not yet tomorrow, but 5 years later, good things are happening. Right? The more people engage in the conversation, the better things will, faster and better things will happen.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of this gentleman here, you know, talking about, well, you know, where do we don't want to grow too fast or whatever, or we don't want to lose our identity. So it's like, we need to gather more people here so that everybody is really more committed, you know, they got a dog in the race, their voice is being heard. Well, we can't hear your voice if you don't come out here and speak it, so.
Absolutely, everybody involved.
You know, you talk about growth, the rural areas are growing sizably.
Yeah. Here in the county?
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially the north part of the county.
Uh-huh.
People are moving in every week.
Oh, really?
Yes.
No time. Where are they getting their water?
Some on Ridiculous Hill, some of them are
mentioned a seemingly lack of involvement by minority demographics in the community. How common would you say familial amenities are to produce an effective change in that area?
Say that again?
You mentioned the lack of involvement from minority demographics in the community. How important would you say familial amenities are within a city to produce an effective change, to get those outliers involved?
What do you mean by familial amenities?
Well, okay, so we don't have businesses like bowling, movie theaters, things like that.
Yeah.
We have a city park.
Yeah.
But it's
Like things
outside of
good.
the way.
Yeah.
We have our baseball park, Hills Park. That's also kind of out of the way. So how important is that to bring a community closer together, to get more people involved, more people conversing with each other, just to produce the kind of change we want to see?
I mean, I think it's super important to, if you want to see that kind of change, you have to have people interacting with each other. Whether it's at a bowling alley or a city council meeting or whatever. I guess a family-friendly destination type of place could help towards that. I want to see, or I think it would be helpful to see an effort by the community to say everybody's invited, like downtown. I've heard some people don't come downtown because they don't feel like it's for them.
Yeah.
Why is that, and how do we change it? Because that's not what we want, or that's not what I want.
So my wife is an immigrant. She's a citizen now. They moved here when she was 10 years old. Her parents, her immediate family, have all recently become citizens or have recently acquired a green card. Now, they get together a lot. I mean, a whole lot, right? To the point where I'm just like, man, I should stay home. Leave me out of it. But they don't. My wife does try to get involved as far as going downtown, doing, like the coffee fair, whatever we have. But her family not so much. So I guess my next question would be, or my idea would be, how about more culturally based events?
Sure.
To try and widen them out. That help people learn about each other's backgrounds, kind of break down those things that are inhibiting us from getting together.
Yeah, totally. Probably one of the biggest events that happens in downtown Waco these days is the Dia de los Muertos. And it brings tons of people out, and it's awesome, and it's all kinds of people. And I think that's been really wonderful. I also think that there's, a generational aspect to places that people go and things that people do. I used to talk, like talking to people about downtown Waco in the early days, I would talk to any group, anybody, old lady book clubs or whatever, anything. And every time I would go talk to a group of older people, they would basically say, "Oh, I'm not going downtown because either if I can find a parking spot, I'd probably get murdered." Not in those words, but you know what I mean. It's just they didn't grow up going to downtown because by then everything had moved out. What they needed had moved out, and so what you're seeing or what I'm seeing is in downtown areas, it's younger people that are doing things. In downtown Waco, it was a bunch of young people that were buying buildings for little or nothing and fixing them up because they didn't know any better. And some of them lost money, and some of them are, huge statewide developers. The older generation of Waco, they didn't want to touch it, except for what they already owned, and they were, bringing in through rents or whatever. They weren't going to fix it up. So seeing young people get out there and just take the chance and take the risk and kind of turning it into their own place was pretty awesome.
considering us and you're going through this process, one thing I see, and I'd like to remind you to consider is, we're here in Hillsborough. And one of our great benefits, but also one of the things that I think affects us is people like to do something novel, and we happen to be an hour away from 2 international airports in Dallas and Fort Worth. We're 30 minutes away from Waxahachie, Waco, and Cleburne, and those things. So when we're placemaking and thinking about what we can do, it's different. You also have to remember, a lot of people want to go out of town for a date, or do something novel. And so some ideas about what retail at an age when retail is really, really tough might do better here than others. But these are gonna have to be things we think about. Our downtown has struggled.
Retail is hard.
Retail is very hard.
It's so hard as a small business owner. You know, the people that I see successful in retail at small businesses on Main Street are either businesses that have been around for generations or people that are just so passionate that they can't let it go, no matter the fact that they're losing money for 3 years before they.
We do have more entertainment coming, and we have some businesses like attorneys and things like that that have moved into downtown, and everybody's like, that should still be a restaurant or whatever. But retail.
I think retail's hard. I think what makes downtowns tick is restaurants and bars and places to go and things to do rather than shopping. Just because I can get whatever's at the boutique delivered tomorrow to my door. But restaurants and amenities, bars and things like that, you can create an atmosphere that's not like anywhere else that draws people in. Met a guy once who redid they call it Pearl District in Portland, Oregon. Not the Pearl in San Antonio, but it's kind of a similar strategy. And this guy, he bought this old rail yard on the, we'll say, east side of downtown. And started putting buildings up. And I asked him what made you successful and how did you get all these people here? This is 20 years, 30 years that he's been working on this. He said, restaurants. People love food. You know, it's a universal language. What else? Yes, sir.
Were there any suggestions on outdoor recreation space, given the amount of land that we have, or another thing to do outside outdoors? I know we have at least 2 parks.
Yeah.
City Park.
Yeah.
But as far as any suggestions on the value in developing that or improving it, whether growth, city or community, was anything like that suggested to?
Yeah, one of the components, I think, of your comprehensive plan is going to be a parks master plan. You all going forward with that? Depends on funding. But in the RFP that the consulting team, responded to and won, there's an adult in the contract that calls for a parks master plan, looking at existing parks, future parks. I know y'all have the huge park out here with Little League and all that kind of stuff that evidently is used a whole lot, but it's also in a floodplain, so it kind of goes underwater a lot. So addressing those issues, making the parks more useful and beautiful and helpful and bringing people together is definitely something that needs to be considered, and they're working on it. What else?
I have to say something.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I appreciate it right now because I've been coming to the city council meeting and I've not seen so many people here. It's a refreshing feeling to just meet people that's want to meet and care about the community and want to see grow. votes and all that kind of stuff. And that's really, really good. I've been here a long time, people don't know me, but I've been here for a long time. We have city council members in each district, and I think that if, you can reach out to your city council members and talk to them about problems in the area, or you can go to the city hall and you can talk to Megan, she's very open about whatever concern about, you know, planning this or planning that, she's very open about that. And I think it starts at the city council meetings. This is the first time I've seen, I can't remember 38 people here, usually there's only, what, maybe 6, 7, maybe.
And they're only here because they're mad about something, yeah?
Exactly. Everybody else go to rent and rave, complain about the city or want to complain about this or that. But when you come here to the city council meeting, you can be heard. You can be heard about, you know, where's going on this side of town or that side of town. Instead of going to a rent and rave, you can get it solved right here. So this is a refreshing thing to see people that care about the community and want to see.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Absolutely.
You rarely see a lot of the Hispanic community here, the black community here, rare, ever. But you hear the complaints.
Yeah.
But they come here, talk to the city council meeting, make a meeting with Megan to bring the community together and work on growth and retail space or whatever.
Yeah.
This is how you do it.
Yeah. Just do something. You're the one that you're waiting for. And I think that is a perfect note to end on. Unless y'all have anything else.
Well, I was gonna ask, you said like your wife's family would get out, right? Like, how would, for me, I would love to figure out how we can close the gaps and get to the community, you know, and reach out to bring them out to get more involved. Like, what do you think, other than like doing an event focused in what they're interested in, like how would we get out to them, just day to day, and like have this conversation?
For them, for her immediate family, now it's getting kind of tough because I don't know if you want to talk about Ruby, but they have a food truck. It's down across railroad tracks by it. So they're doing that typically Tuesday through Sunday. They're focused on that. Her older brother is focused on his business, which I think it's reached to a national level now. And so he's busy with that a lot. So for them, specifically, that's been tough. But for that community, what I've seen, because I didn't grow up, that's not what I grew up in. That's not the environment. Like I said, they're really, really big on family. And every week, without fail, they are all getting together, even if it's over there at the taco shop. Like, they're getting together. It's music, it's food, or some alcohol, things like that. I know that, you know, they grew up in Mexico, so they always had different, like he said, Dia de los Muertos, different things like that, different celebrations like that. That, I mean, if they took place here, you might actually draw people out for this event.
Right.
And you might learn something new. You might make a new best friend. I don't know. So they would be able to speak better to that than I would, but I would start there with simple things. Just trying to get them together as a family.
Yeah.
Familial events will draw them for sure.
Cool. Appreciate y'all coming out and having a chat. It's important, you know, it's the only way you get what you want. And I think y'all are headed in the right direction, so thank you guys.